What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of The Sit Down. This is, I guess, 8.3 of my personal week of doing stuff, and this is going to be another very different kind of topic today. I had gotten asked by a couple of people to talk about this movie that's been going around that's been really kind of controversial and things like that, and, I'm a man of the people, so I had to do it. So today we're going to talk about the movie. I'm sure everybody knows about it by now, Cuties. Let me just start by saying, before I get into the details of it, that I was extremely uncomfortable watching this movie. I was very curious by some of the tactics, per se. It was not comfortable for me to watch at all, and there were some parts, honestly, that I had to kind of skip through because it was very divisive. But you want to know what? As I took a step back and I sort of thought about it a little bit more, I think that's exactly what the producer of this movie was trying to do. So for the people that haven't watched it, pretty much it revolves around this 11-year-old girl named Amy who moved from Senegal to one of the poorest parts of Paris. And from what I took away, she really seemed to be kind of struggling with her religious beliefs. She was brought up in traditional Muslim beliefs. So it was particularly interesting because my first instinct was to automatically kind of go to what I think a lot of people are talking about, which is the sexualization of young girls. This girl's 11, and it was really alarming to see the portrayal of these little girls doing this stuff. And it's crazy because I'm just trying to think, when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, when I was 11, I was thinking about video games and playing sports and hanging with the people and hanging with the homies that were in the cul-de-sac and all that stuff. That was never a thing for me as a kid. But I think the unfortunate reality of the situation now is that it shines a light on a really dark part of the culture of society today. I mean, you can't be mad at these kids for replicating what they see. Kids behave through learned things. Kids learn actions and then they replicate. You see bad parents, the kids usually replicate such. You see kids getting exposed to things like sexualization of women. They're gonna replicate that. And I think the thing that was really interesting that a lot of people get hung up on is that the kids were dancing in an adult fashion. Keyword, adult. The uniforms that the kids were wearing in the movie, they actually adopted from a group that they saw that were older than them that were dancing, doing the same thing. So my question is that how can you be mad at those kids for doing that? Because that's what they're being taught is okay. They're being taught that sexualizing themselves and portraying themselves in that light is okay. It's not the kids' fault. The kids do learn things. What they see is what they replicate. And, what really made me think is it sucks because that is the society we live in today. For me, I'm not on TikTok. I have friends that are on TikTok, and every time I see them go on TikTok, the first things that are always on the feed is these girls just dancing, twerking, doing all this crazy stuff. And it's that makes me uncomfortable. And I don't know what their age is. I hope that they're older than 11 years old. But the unfortunate reality of it is that some of them probably aren't. Some of them probably aren't. But when these young girls see things that are getting these girls attention, that are getting these girls recognized, that are getting these girls the attention and the approval that they want, everybody wants to be approved. Everybody, especially when you're young, you seek the approval of others. So if as a society, we give that a heart. We like that. We like all this sexualization of women. What do you think the younger girls are going to think? That's what I should be doing too. So my point is this. It has nothing to do with the 11-year-old girls. It has everything to do with the society that we're bringing them up in. We all play a part in that aspect. And the unfortunate reality of the situation is that those all these people that are all pissed off and all appalled about all the sexualization of 11-year-old girls are the same people that are liking every single bikini pic they see scroll past their Instagram feed, or they like every picture of a woman, you know, looking good in a tight dress or whatever the case may be. I mean, that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. And my point is this, is you can't be a hypocrite. Because when you like every single bikini pic you see go by, or you watch an 18-year-old girl or a 16-year-old girl dancing, doing their thing on TikTok, there's really no difference. Let's call a spade a spade. And I mean, yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's not cool, but that's the unfortunate reality of the situation. I think a lot of people are getting hung up with the age of these girls and how they're dancing and things like that, but we need to look deeper than that and realize that this is an accurate representation of what societal norms look like nowadays, unfortunately. And it's disgusting. And again, I was uncomfortable the entire time I was watching the movie, and there were some scenes I had to kind of skip past. I couldn't watch it. It was gross to me. It was sick. And it made me disappointed because that's the society that kids are growing up in nowadays. This is a portrayal of what the societal norms look like. This is social media, guys. I'm sorry to let you all know this, but this is what it is. This is social media. And again, I don't get how you can blame 11-year-olds for seeking approval from unimportant people. They don't know any better. That's what they're supposed to do. When you're young, you're very impressionable. You're going to replicate the things that you see on a daily basis. And that's exactly what they're doing. You can't shoot the messenger. You have to go to the root of the problem and attack that. All these people are talking about canceling Netflix. By the way, I didn't necessarily like the way that Netflix went about it, posting that initial picture of like the girls, like all like I think they just got done with one of their first dance competitions, and they were dressed with like no clothes on, and that was the kind of the cover of the movie in this version that was coming out in the States. And yeah, that was a bit divisive too, but this whole movie is divisive, and I think that's the whole point. And I think that's what people are getting hung up on, is that it's supposed to be divisive because the average person is always going to be resistant to change. And the unfortunate reality of the situation is that I believe that this woman, or this cast of people that were creating this movie, that had this vision for this movie, they are trying to prove a point that these young women in particular growing up in society today are being victimized of a sexualized social norm that they have to grow up in. And it's sick. And I think that's why a lot of people are uncomfortable with it, and they don't realize the real reason. Because I'm gonna have kids one day, and I would like to have a boy and a girl. And I don't want my young girl growing up in this. I don't want her growing up in this. And my question is how do we change that? How do we stop that? How do we slow that down? How do we not expose our kids to that sort of stuff? Because these kids grow up, they have cell phones. They have phones I have an iPhone 7. I saw an 8-year-old kid at the store yesterday who had an iPhone 10. Why does an 8-year-old kid need an iPhone 10 if I'm a 25-year-old adult and I have an iPhone 7? Why is that necessary? Why do kids need cell phones like that at 8 years old? It's you know, I think that's part of the problem. You know, we give these kids so much freedom at such a young age that it's bound to happen. How do you expect it to not happen? If all their friends are talking about the new video on TikTok, or, oh, did you see this thing on Instagram? Or did you see that reel that this girl posted on Instagram? They're going to see it. And I just don't necessarily know what we can do to try to stop that. Because it is alarming and it is scary. And I think it's scary and alarming, not only for the visual representation of what it looks like, but the fact that that really is a thing in today's society. Like, again, when I was 11 years old, there was no twerking, there was no promiscuous dancing, there was none of that stuff. Like, when I had a school dance, when I had my first school dance at Rectory School, we were dancing like Tin Men without any oil. We were stiff as boards. It was like, talking about six feet, it was like 12 feet, bro. We weren't doing none of that stuff. Like, I didn't get exposed to that sort of stuff till I was like in high school. So I was 16 years old when I first started to see stuff like that. Why? Why is that so different between then and now? I got into high school in 2010. It's 2020 now, so in 10 years, things have changed that much. That's the problem. That's the issue right there. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about. Because in all actuality, although the movie made me uncomfortable, it made me sick to my stomach, I'm still uncomfortable talking about it now. I think it did exactly what it was meant to do. It was meant to be divisive. It was meant to force people to have hard conversations, to look at what the societal norms that we're showing these kids are okay. Because again, I don't care what anybody tells me. Kids do what they see. Kids do what they see. What they get exposed to is what they're going to replicate. These 11-year-old girls replicating this is a representation of what they're getting exposed to. That's the problem. That is the problem. So, my other question is, what is the standard? What is the standard that we're allowing? Because clearly, that is the standard. These kids are the representation of what the standard that we allow to go on. I mean, there's unfortunately, and it sucks for me to say it, but it's the truth. It's the truth. That is the standard that we think is okay. We as a society, we as a people, we as a community. And it sucks. It sucks because it didn't used to be like that. That wasn't my standard growing up as a kid. That was not the way I was taught. That was not what I was exposed to, and is there a strong possibility that with the growth of social media, this was going to happen regardless? Of course. And I think that's another thing that needs to be talked about too. I think if you're going to put yourself on a social platform, you need to understand the responsibility that you hold. Because a lot of these people think that, I post a picture to my 400 followers on Instagram and it's just going to be them. That's so not true. That's so not true. There's algorithms and there's ways that things get put out to people. You don't know. Anytime you put something on social media, it's out there for everybody. And you have to think about more than just you whenever you post something online. That's why I'm really trying to make sure I go about this the right way. Because this is going to be for everybody to see. And I'm taking the responsibility to make sure that I represent myself in the best light that I possibly can and try to vocalize myself accurately with facts and say the truth. Because I was so intrigued by this whole movie. I went on YouTube and I was watching a lot of people talk about the movie and talk about this, that, such, and the other. And I was disappointed because these people were just doing it for clickbait. They were just doing it to get views. They were doing it to get paid. They were doing it for the monetization. They were doing it for ad revenue. They were doing it for all this BS. And to me, that's just such a damn shame because that completely takes away from what this whole movie is made for, which is to have conversation and to show people that this stuff is not okay. This stuff is not okay. And we need to do something to change it. And what that something is, I have no freaking idea. I think it starts in-house though. I think it starts with parents. I think it starts with how these kids are brought up. Because if you look back to Amy, she was brought up in a really terrible household. Her father was marrying multiple wives. She was bored with her religious beliefs. Her aunt was pushing religious faith on her that she didn't want to do. So she really had no support system. And her mother was getting beat down by her father, marrying all these different women, and she was distraught. So she really didn't have any strong foundation to grow up within. And I think that's a starting point. I think as parents, and I'm not a parent, but I'm just going to speak as if I am. As parents, we need to accept the role and accept the responsibility to be accountable for how our kids act, how our kids function. Because again, I'll say this to the day I die. Kids do what they see. Kids replicate something that they're exposed to. As parents, we need to do everything that we can do to make sure that these kids are being exposed to what you want them to replicate. It's no different than in adulthood. Put yourself around people that you want to be like. There's no difference there. So why is the standard different? Why is the standard different? I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me. And then I thought the ending of the movie was pretty powerful too, because there gets to a point in the movie where Amy, she's like dancing with her crew in front of a big audience, and she just starts like crying in front of everybody. And I think at that moment she realized what she was doing was really messed up. It was not okay. And she got a lot of disapproval from her parents when she got back home, and there was a wedding, her father's wedding, that she was supposed to go to, but her mother told her not to go because of the way she was dressed. She wanted to show disapproval, and because of those values that her mother instilled in her over time, and even though Amy got sidetracked temporarily, she ended up going back to what she was taught. She ended up going back to how she was trained, how she was taught, how she was taught to act, right? And at the end of the movie, she changes into some jeans, a t-shirt, and some regular shoes, and she goes and plays jump rope with her friends. And I thought that was particularly impactful because it really made me think there's going to be moments in life where you get distracted. There's going to be moments in life where you get sidetracked and you act out of character and you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing. And even though you know better, you still do it anyway because in the moment it feels right. And I think what's so interesting about that is that even though you mess up and you've been messing up, it's never too late to make the adjustment and to make the change and to be that person that you're supposed to be. And that's kind of how I took it. So, yeah, that was kind of my take on the whole movie, Cuties. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. Again, it's uncomfortable. It's not fun to watch, but I think it's something that more people should watch and watch it with an open mind because there's lessons to be learned in that movie. There's lessons to be learned, and it challenged me. It made me think very differently, and it really made me reflect and made me think, what am I doing to try to make culture a better place? What am I doing to make society a better place for these young kids growing up? Because the fact of the reality is that we play a role in what the kids growing up today are gonna step into. They're already in it now, clearly. So we need to take more responsibility. We need to accept the challenge to make society the way we want to make it. Don't be mad at these kids. Be mad at yourself. Be mad at yourself because at the end of the day, you, like myself, like anybody else, we all play a role and we need to understand that. We need to take up the shield, take up the sword, and lead the charge to make this place a better place for our kids. Because there's no time to waste, and I'll be damned if I'm going to bring my kids up in a society like this. So, but alrighty, y'all, that was it. We'll see you guys again pretty soon. I hope everybody liked this. I would love to have some conversations about it. So if anybody watches this and would like to have a conversation, please let me know. I would love to hear some other people's takeaways. And we will see you guys in the next one. Alrighty. Later.